Imagine if you could easily find solutions to make your region or city smarter, greener, better connected, more social, and closer to citizens. The Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform can help you access knowledge about the latest policy trends, discover expert-validated good practices from all over Europe, find solutions in our peer review, get tailored support from our expert team. We can connect you with the right people and organizations. Together, we will find ways to solve your region's or city's challenges. Start your policy learning journey today.
So good afternoon. It's my pleasure to welcome you here to the second episode of our webinar series, where we are looking at the topic of biowaste. Last week, we have discussed various methods of biowaste collection. And this week, today, we will focus on biowaste treatment. So my name is Magda Michaliková, and I am a thematic expert at the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform. I would also like to welcome my expert colleagues, Astrid Severin, who is also a thematic expert at the platform, and Valentine Dufay from our communications team. Before we start, I would like to just share some housekeeping rules. So we are recording this webinar, and you will be able to find the recording online, along with all the presentations that you will see today. We have a nice chat function that you can see at the bottom. So please use that. Don't be shy. Ask questions to our excellent speakers that we have with us today. And also let us know where are you coming from. And at the end of the webinar, we will share a survey. It will automatically pop up. So please don't forget to give us feedback. And now to the agenda. So after a little introduction from me, we will have a keynote presentation from Mr. Steffen Walk from the European Compost Network, who will talk about the importance of high-quality biowaste. And after our keynote presentation, we will look at three good practices by Loes Vandecasteele of the city of Mechelen, who will talk about composting at home, by Mr. Dietmar Cavosi, who will talk about anaerobic digestion of organic waste in the province of Bolzano, and by Mr. Emiel Elferink, who will talk about bokashi. And that is a little surprise of what this bokashi is. Of course, we have time for questions. So we will take these questions throughout the webinar, and we will also have some time in the end. So please ask away. Maybe we can go to the slide before. Yes, thank you very much. So most of you probably were with us last week. So I will not go too much in depth about the policy learning platform and Interreg Europe, but just as a reminder, the policy learning platform offers various opportunities. So we give access to knowledge. We have a lot of written material, policy briefs. We have a large database of good practices, which you can search through. We also have a lot of stories, articles, news. So really quite a lot of resources on our website. We also give access to people. So we organize events where you can meet the community, meet people who are working on similar topics as you do. And you can also search for these people on the platform itself and reach out to them. And we also offer access to expertise. So we have two main services, expert services that we offer, and I will look at these in a little bit more detail. So these are so-called peer reviews and matchmakings. And the peer review is a 2 days meeting. It's basically an in-depth analysis of your policy challenge. So you can come to us, reach out with a policy challenge that you have in your region, and we look for peers who would then exchange with you on their experience with a similar challenge that they have resolved in their region already. And they present you with potential solutions. So we've already had over 70 of these peer reviews, and we have applications coming every day now. So it is really an excellent service that's very popular at the platform. And a little brother or sister of a peer review is a so-called matchmaking, which is a 2-hour event where we have an in-depth discussion, again, with a selected group of peers. Again, it is tailored to your policy needs and questions, but here we really focus on something that is very, very niche and specific, I would say, so that we can tackle it in 2 hours. And I will just briefly talk about 2 examples of our past peer review and a past matchmaking. So a peer review that some of you maybe heard last week was a peer review for the Porto area in Portugal. And their challenge was a separate biowaste collection, how to increase it, and how to introduce pay-as-you-throw schemes. So the topics were efficient methods for separate biowaste collection, approaches to increase quantity and purity of biowaste, and pay-as-you-throw schemes and self-sustainable financing models for biowaste collection and management. And you can also find reports of those on our website again. And another example I want to mention was a matchmaking that we did for Andalucia in Spain. And this time on the topic of small-scale automated composting. So they've had a project where they had 5 semi-automatic machines in small municipalities, and they wanted to look at specific operational problems of those machines. And now we would like to get to know you a little bit as well. So we will have 2 polls. In one poll, the first one, we are asking you where you are coming from, and it should pop up on our screens, I think, anytime. Okay, so we will see who's coming from local, regional, or national authority. Maybe you're coming from private sector, from a waste management organization, an NGO, EU institution, or other, maybe a university. So majority of you are coming from local, regional, or national authorities so far, but we will still wait a little bit. Yeah, but I think the trends are quite clear. But it's a nice mix that we have here, with the majority of you coming from local, regional, and national authorities. But please continue to vote as well. The polls are there. And a second one what we want to ask you is, do you know what type of biowaste treatment is used in your city? And yeah, maybe it's a combination of anaerobic digestion and composting. Maybe it's mainly home composting, maybe industrial composting, anaerobic digestion, or maybe you don't know. So I think that's quite interesting to see as well. So it looks like Almost 1/3 is not so sure. And yeah, and around 1/3 thinks it's a combination of anaerobic digestion and composting. So maybe something to find out for those who don't know. And here we have a little word cloud that we try to share in the end, if we don't forget, where you can let us know what you think are the main challenges with biowaste treatment. Yes, impurities, quality of biowaste input. A lot of people saying quality, quantity, different types of contaminants, lack of citizen awareness. Yeah, contamination. Right, yeah, it's coming nicely together. And so please keep adding ideas, and we will come back to this at the end of the webinar. And I think this is actually quite a nice introduction to our keynote presentation, because, yeah, Steffen Walk from the European Compost Network will actually talk about the importance of high quality biowaste. And we have seen in the word cloud that you've been putting impurities and quality quite a lot. So it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. And Steffen, the floor is yours. Hopefully you will provide our participants with some answers.
First of all, let me know if you see my screen perfectly, because I don't see you anymore now.
Everything works.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for introducing me. I think it was very interesting now to see all the issues popping up, because that it seems that the problems, or there's an awareness of the problems that are arising for biowaste treatment, which I will speak briefly about in this presentation as well. But first of all, I would like to give you a very short introduction on what we are doing at ECN. We are a membership organization with around 67 members right now from 28 European countries. And all of these members, they are national associations and companies working in biowaste treatment, with a capacity of 48 million tons per year to treat biowaste, and around 4,500 composting and anaerobic digestion plants. So yeah, we are representing a large share of the treatment capacity all over Europe. Before I go into my presentation, I just quickly introduce you to two projects that we are currently working at as well in ECN. One is the EU Life-funded biowaste project, where we are working among other partners in the guiding and the mainstreaming of best biowaste recycling practices. It's a preparatory project working on EU guidance, EU standardized guidance and standardization to close the gap between biowaste and bringing it back to soils as compost or as digestate. And the second one is an Interreg-funded project called CORE. I know we have another project, another presentation in a bit about this project from a project partner, but we are an advisory partner in this project, and yeah, helping in the development of best practices, especially in the rural ecosystems in different EU countries and regions. So the agenda, I will briefly talk about the importance of high quality biowaste, the main challenges in collection, but mainly treatment, And then I give a glimpse of some policies that are aiming at improving of biowaste quality. So first of all, why is it important to have high quality biowaste as a feedstock for treatment? It's clear that the feedstock quality directly affects also the product quality. So for compost and digestate, one can say in general that if we have a low quality of the input material, the chances are very high that we might have also a not very high quality of products. And when I speak about quality here, this can refer to macro impurities such as plastics, glass, metals, but as well on the chemical composition, depending on the feedstock origin. However, treatment technology can help to partly remove the impurities, but with impurity removal, we always lose also a big chunk of the organic material that could be recycled. Because no treatment technology can 100% distinguish between the good material and the bad material. So I think that is the basis, the basic understanding why we have to start at the point of collection and not only on the point of treatment to assure high quality of the final product. So in general, as you might be aware, treatment for biowaste are the most common options. They are composting, anaerobic digestion, or an integrated system. What I'm presenting here right now, introducing to treatment technologies, will also be published in a report quite soon, probably in around August. So if you want to know more about treatment technologies, pre and post treatment to remove impurities or to refine the product, you can have a look at this report probably in August. All of these treatment options, they have their specific benefits depending on local circumstances, also national, regional targets, whether it's included biowaste as an energy source or mainly composting. Within these options, there are different levels of technical complexity as well, especially for the composting process. You can go from very low-tech open windrow composting to automated system indoor systems. So to set the base, in 2022, in Europe we recycled 71 million tons of biowaste, producing around 21 million tons of compost. Another fraction was produced of digestate was produced as well. So 42 million tons were directly composted, and 29 million tons went through an anaerobic digestion process to produce biogas. This helped as well to sequester 1.2 million tons of CO2. So we can say that composting is definitely a step to help to bring CO2 into soils. So to basically to act as a storage for CO2. To give an overview of the main challenges, which you might have heard already last week, but just to round it up, only 43% of the municipal biowaste was collected separately in 2022. And the main issue is food waste. So we still have a lot of this food waste in our residual waste bins. It has a huge potential for treating higher amounts of this to biogas, but also mainly to compost or digestate. The other issue is, as was established already before, the contamination. So they can be very high depending on the collection system. Can be very user unfriendly, open street containers where no one knows exactly who's throwing their waste in there. And another issue is as well that many European member states, although there's the obligation from this year on, still haven't introduced a nationwide collection system. Speaking of targets, as you might know, In the EU, we have the target to recycle 65% of the municipal solid waste by 2035, and this is not to be achieved without a higher recycling rate of biowaste. Currently, we need to improve the recycling rate of biowaste from 17 to 35%, which would be another 40 million tons per year to be treated to achieve this recycling target. So that was the main challenge for collection, but I would say the challenges that we have in collection, they are directly linked to also the challenges in treatment. It really depends on feedstock composition, especially the level of impurities. It might cause a very intense pre and post treatment. So there's always the issue of increased cost that we have for the treatment or the removal of impurities. And this might cause as well the loss of organic material that would need to go to incineration because it's very contaminated. Currently, a highly debated topic is as well the issue of biodegradable plastics, especially in anaerobic digestion and also composting. The current treatment capacity and also the treatment duration is usually much shorter than the actual time the degradation would take. So this issue causes also an increase of contamination in the final product. Just to make a short introduction to best practices in biowaste treatment, you can also see this in a guideline that will be presented around August, just to showcase the level of complexity that composting or in general treatment of biowaste can have. Here I selected a small-scale composting plant in Catalonia in Spain. This is a plant that serves around 30,000 inhabitants. And they are producing only compost. It's an open windrow treatment. And as you can see, they have a very good input quality as well as a very good output quality with very low level of contamination. Another example is the complete opposite. We have a large-scale anaerobic digestion and composting plant in the Bochum district in Germany that serves 1.6 million inhabitants. They have more intense pre and post treatment, but they are also producing very high quality compost and biogas as well. So now I'm going to present you two policies in brief. I just want to note that within the Life Biowaste project, we also have a policy brief published in last January, so you can access this already when you want to know more about the current challenges in policies and the barriers that would lead or that hinder the high quality production of compost and digestate. So for the first one is a policy from Germany. It's established within the biowaste ordinance. There was added a limiting value for overall impurities of 3% and plastic impurities of 1% at the gate of treatment. And this policy or this legal act leads to the potential that a plant operator can reject the delivery of highly contaminated biowaste if he is sure that he can't produce high quality compost at the end. So I think this is one of the most strict regulations so far in the European Union about input quality measures. The main methodology is on visual inspection, since it was found that the visual count of impurities is highly correlated with the actual impurity by weight in the input material. And a second one is actually an economic instrument integrated into a regional waste policy. This is true for the region of Catalonia in Spain, where they have a biowaste monitoring scheme since many years, which is based on a landfill tax and a refund system. And so the municipalities pay a tax on landfill and incinerations, and they can get a refund for the quantities and quality of biowaste collected. So there's also a limit for a maximum contamination that decreases annually. So this, with this tax refund system, municipalities get nudged to try to improve their quality and potentially also their qualities. And yes, this is it from my side. Within the Live Biobase project, just on a note, we asked municipalities or local entities if they are seeking for help or support for setting up or improving their biowaste management system. We have a small program that they can reach out to us. There's a registration link. I'm not sure if it will be in the chat. If you're seeking for help, please reach out to us, and we will be very grateful or would like to help you in this sense. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Steffen, for the excellent presentation and great introduction, I think, into the challenge that indeed, as you have shown with the statistics and numbers, still lies ahead of us. Some of the main points from your presentation that I've noted down. So we have almost 40% of biowaste in the residual waste stream still. There's the big gap in collection of food waste, and of course the issues of contamination. So you've mentioned the problem with biodegradable plastic bags, that they are not really matching the time when it comes to degrading, as is the other waste, and that in this sense it's essential to ensure purity at the collection stage. And I thought the examples that you've mentioned from Germany and from Catalonia were really excellent as well. Very inspirational, I think. So do we have any questions for Steffen? Maybe from the colleagues here, from the panelists?
Okay, maybe I can ask a question before we are going to the question which we're just receiving now. Very nice presentation. Thank you very much, Steffen, also from my side. So you talked about 40 million tons that we have to collect in addition and treat in addition, of course. What do you think is going to be key for that? You presented 2 policy instruments here that can be used. What would you recommend?
Well, first of all, learning from best practices that exist already. As I said, some of them, the European member states, they still don't have a nationwide biowaste collection and treatment system in place. So I think this is the first key, to bring them to introduce a collection system and as well a treatment system that serves at least a big share of the population. The other point is that also those countries that have it implemented as well already, they still have a big potential to improve. As it was, I think it was mentioned some elsewhere. So there's an obligation for each household to be to have biowaste bin. And this obligation is not put into practice still, even though for countries that have already biowaste collection in place. So there's a big gap that could be filled if more households would receive a biowaste bin. So basically, you have to bring the obligation into force, or to enforce the obligation. That's one solution. Could be one solution.
And you think it is enforcement, or it is incentivizing, or just awareness raising, or is it a mixture of everything
Well,
together?
Well, one thing is awareness raising. Awareness raising for inhabitants is one thing, but that usually helps for those who have a biowaste bin already. Those who are not provided with a biowaste bin for regional reasons, I think that it's more about also incentivizing by regulations that municipalities see an advantage in having biowaste collection and treatment. This for sure, yes. And the last point, of course, it's enforcement.
It's enforcement, of course. Also inspection. I don't know. I've heard in Switzerland there is a little window in the bins, and you can see, which also helps with the quality, I guess. We have a question from the audience, which is the following. Is the tax for incineration and landfilling an instrument on local level, in brackets Andalusia, or on national level in Spain?
It's only in Catalonia so far.
It's only in Catalonia, so it can be done at regional level as well.
Yes,
at least in Spain.
It goes down until municipal level, because the municipalities they are paying those taxes.
Is that the same in Belgium and in the Netherlands and in Italy? Can you maybe say that, Emiel, Loes? Is a landfill tax something which you can enforce regionally? Dietmar? In Bolzano, would you know?
Not sure we have one.
Yeah, this is really not my expertise on that, but from what I know, it's citizens pay to the municipalities, so it's managed by them.
But still, if you want to read more on this, again, we have a policy brief published within the Live Biobase project. So there it also deals with these regulations and how they are put in place, and actually in which countries there are landfill taxes, pay-as-you-throw systems, and so on. So all these systems in place.
Very good. Maybe just one more time to Loes. I think you started to speak. You had your mic open.
I didn't know. I don't know how it's arranged with the taxes here for landfill. I don't think we have landfill of biowaste, so
okay.
To be honest,
we have the contrary in the Netherlands. You pay for landfilling for the non-green waste. So and the green waste is collected for free. So
very good. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. We also have a excuse me. We also have a comment in the chat. I think along those lines. So for achieving the most amount, we need different entities to legislate in common. So when you have regulations that are going against each other, it is hard to do something about it. So yeah, I assume in some countries, well, it will be very specific anyways from country to country, I think, what you can also do on regional level and national level. Okay, so thank you very much. We also have another comment from Sarah. So biowaste policy needs to distinguish between pre-consumer and post-consumer biowaste. Pre-consumer biowaste can be recycled further up the food waste hierarchy. For example, to be used as feedstock for insects to then make feed. So any comments from our panel on this? Distinguishing between pre-consumer and post-consumer biowaste when it comes to treatment.
Yes, I think here where I'm from in Mechelen, we really try to focus on this high value valorization of. So first we try to prevent, and then secondly, the surplus food, if it's still useful for food consumption, human consumption, then of course it's better to redistribute that instead of burning it or using it for energy. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is reflected also in the policies in Mechelen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Good. Okay, so then, well, actually, over over to you, Loes. You are the next on the agenda, and you will speak about how biowaste is treated in the city of Mechelen. So please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Magda. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh, perfect.
So I'm gonna talk to you about one specific part, how biowaste is treated in Mechelen. It's home composting. It's one of the good practices we identified in the CITISYSTEM project. The consortium of CITISYSTEM consists out of 7 partners from 6 different countries, and I am the project coordinator for the Belgian partner in Mechelen. I work for the city of Mechelen. So I will talk to you about one of the good practices, home composting in our region. But first I need to explain you a little bit about how Belgium is organized. Even though we are a tiny country, it is a little bit complicated. So we have 3 different regions in Belgium. One is Flanders in the north, or the Dutch-speaking community. And then there is Wallonia in the south, or the French-speaking community. And then we have a small German-speaking community in the east. Each community also, aside from the federal government, has its own government. And Mechelen, where I am situated, lays just in between Antwerp and Brussels, right in the middle. So it's in Flanders. And the home composting scheme I will talk about is only implemented in Flanders. So let me now explain you how biowaste is managed in Flanders. All municipalities are grouped into a so-called intermunicipal waste association. These associations are involved in the managing of the organic and inorganic waste that is produced in the participating municipalities. And the Flemish Public Waste Authority, OVAM, is the responsible administration. For Mechelen and the 9 municipalities around it, the intermunicipal waste company is called IVAREM. And then so OVAM, the public authority, the intermunicipal waste associations, and the companies processing the biowaste, they are all united by the non-profit organization that is called Vlaco. And Vlaco has been representing the policy and the interest of the organic cycle in Flanders for more than 30 years already. The policy on organic waste in Flanders has a twofold approach. So on one side, we have the small cycle, the closed loop, and on the other side, we have a long closed loop. So more the selective collection and processing of green waste and organic waste that goes towards industrial treatment plants. And then so composting at home falls under the small cycle on the left, and that focuses on local processing of the organic waste. So raising awareness, prevention and education of the citizens how to do it themselves is very important in this cycle. The small cycle is some sort of prevention, as I said, because actually waste that is not taken with the door-to-door collection or is given to any of the recycling parks here is not seen as waste. So that's the interpretation that we have in Flanders to the waste directive. And that's also why we often call it organic remains or organic residues instead of organic waste. So the promotion of composting at home in Mechelen specifically has been going on since the late 90s. the idea is that we want to keep the bio-waste, so the kitchen scrap and the the garden waste from the citizens in the small loop, because it's better for the environment, because if it's done properly, the composting process, you have less greenhouse gas emissions. And also you save money because you don't need costly transport or any processing infrastructure is needed. Citizens get support in the form of information. So Vlaco has a website and they share out a lot of manuals. They have brochures, they have videos on how to compost at home. And they organize info sessions and workshops on a regular basis. And also on the website of the city, you can find the link to this information. And additionally, people can get actual practical advice from, we call them the master composters. Those are volunteers that are trained by Vlaco. And in Mechelen specifically, you can see them every second Sunday of the month. They come to one of the city parks where we also have a composting demo installed, and people can ask for advice. Until 2022, this good practice was subsidized by the Flemish government. So from OVAM, people could buy compost bins or wormeries. You can see on the picture the gray boxes that are stacked on each other. They could buy this for a more economical price through the city, but unfortunately the subsidy has stopped since 2022. But the good news is that the city really wants to keep putting resources into this to keep on promoting this small cycle of composting at home, even though there will be general door-to-door collection from 2026 onwards. So what are the results? Vlaco has done some scientific research and did an extended poll in 2018. And they found out that 41% of the people in Flanders are composting at home. Some of them are composting a small parts and others are composting quite a lot of the organic residues that they produce. We also make a distinction between garden waste and kitchen waste. So 40% of the garden waste producers are composting more than 75% of their garden waste at home. And 36% of the kitchen waste producers are composting more than 75% of their kitchen waste at home. And then if we compare this to the actual weights, 55% of the waste was processed through selective collection and then industrial composting. And then a small 24% was through home composting. And then we have still 22% that ends up in the residual waste. Yep. So actually we have two possibilities in Flanders. So you can choose, or you compost at home, or you give it to the door-to-door collection, or you go with your garden waste. You can also go to the recycling parks. To give you an idea on the resources used in Flanders for this good practice, I have numbers from 2021 and 22, but for the other years, it's very comparable. So 42,000 euros of subsidies was spent to be able to provide the bins at cheaper prices to the citizens. And specifically for Mechelen, this meant that in those years, 750 compost bins were sold. So we translate that to 750 households, but this is exclusive, the compost bins that people make themselves at home. Not everyone buys one of these bins, but you can also easily make it yourself. We saw that the wormeries were actually they were provided for people who don't really have a garden, don't really have the space to put a compost bin. So more people that live in apartments, and of course we have a lot of people living in apartments in the city. But these worm bins are not very popular because, you know, people still have issues with odor or flies coming to them. So it's not really a favorable option. And then a last thing, if this good practice is transferable to other regions, of course it is. If there is enough space, people with reasonable sized gardens, you can always install a compost bin. And you need, very important is that you really need a central point of contact at the city or another organization where people can go to get all of the information. And it's also very important to continuously inform and educate your volunteers, but also the citizens themselves. Voila. Thank you very much. If you want more information on the City System project, you have the website there.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks for sharing the approach you have in Mechelen and all the results. It's really nice to see that it's been also going for such a long time. And I really found the small and large cycle very interesting and quite impressive to see the number of households that are actually that opted for home composting, even if just partially. And also very interesting and a new thing to me that home composting is not considered waste. It's kind of like staying home in the garden. So that's yeah, that's quite interesting. We have some questions in the chat. So do you accept all kinds of food waste in the composters? How do you deal with animal byproducts?
Yes, I'm not a master composter myself, to be honest. So some organizations or some people, even depending on who you talk to, have different rules. Yes. So some allow animal waste and others don't. But mostly to prevent rats or anything coming to your compost, we advise people not to throw in any meat leftovers or eggshells and so on.
Yeah, thank you. Is there a procedure to prove that home composting is done properly?
No.
No,
even there's
for,
not, but
yeah,
yes,
even
sorry.
for maybe the, the owners themselves, if they have a way to, to check or to turn to somebody. You've mentioned that
there
you
is
have
actually, now that I think of it, you can send a sample to Vlaco and they can analyze for you if you have good quality compost. Yes, because they also do the certification for the industrial compost, so they can, yes, it's possible to send a sample. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So it's basically up to the individuals to,
yes,
to decide.
Because it's also them that are using their own compost.
Yeah, that makes sense. Could you please repeat what Vlaco is? Is it a government agency? Is there a similar organization as Vlaco in other countries?
It's a non-profit, but it's it's linked to government. It represents government and the intermunicipal waste associations together. Because in the early days, the government saw that a lot of composting initiatives were started up, and they wanted to have a more standardized, or a lot of volunteers started to sharing information on how to compost, and they wanted a more standardized way. So that is why they asked Vlaco to take up this role for Flanders. And how this is organized in other countries, to be honest, I don't know. We need to ask the people from the other countries.
Yes, maybe maybe people from similar organizations can react in the chat. And I see also somebody else reacting that Vlaco is a non-profit organization, a membership organizations. Okay, yep. Members are intermunicipalities and treatment plants. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Christel. Christel is working for Vlaco, so she knows the best.
And another question we have, do you account home composting as recycling for achieving the recycling targets, or is it seen as prevention measures of food waste?
It's seen as prevention here.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I hope that is all that we've covered. Astrid, go ahead.
I also have a question. Thank you very much for your great presentation, Loes. It's very interesting to see for how many years you're already doing this, how well you have implemented, and you have very strong recycling rates in Flanders, not in the rest of Belgium. So one of the things we want to do here is to help other regions to adapt, you know, these successful policies and successful measures. Do you think this can easily be transferred to other regions? You know, your system of, for example, promoting home composting. I think that yes, because we have seen now what is happening in Portugal, for example, which is a Mediterranean country. But I would be interested in hearing your opinion.
Yes, I don't see why this could not be transferred to the other regions, even in Belgium.
And why do you think Wallonia is not doing it then? Then I ask another question.
I'm not sure they're not doing it. They're just organized in a different way. I'm not saying they're not composting at all. No. I was just saying that the scheme that I'm talking about is only for Flanders.
No, that was coming from me. What is well known is that you're doing it extremely well, and Wallonia is doing activities, but not to the same rate of success. That's what I was wondering.
Maybe it's not, there's not enough data on it yet, because actually in Wallonia, there's much more space to do home composting. Here in Flanders, we're much more packed together. So, yeah.
Yeah, also could be. Okay, thank you again, Loes. And then we will move to another speaker. And I would like to warmly welcome Dietmar Cavosi, who will speak about anaerobic digestion of organic waste in the province of Bolzano. The floor is yours.
So I hope you can see my presentation. Okay. So hello to everyone. My name is Dietmar Cavosi. I'm plant manager at EcoCenter, and the topic I'm going to speak is anaerobic digestion of organic waste in the province of Bolzano. First, I would like to give you a brief introduction, a description on our province and our local reality. Then I'm going to talk about the implementation of our good practice, the evidence of success, and the lessons learned. As I said, I work for EcoCenter, which is a publicly owned company, so non-profit, and we run the major waste disposal plants in the province of Bolzano, including the anaerobic digestion plant of organic waste, on which we are going to focus in this presentation. So the province of Bolzano is a small mountainous province in northern Italy, in the middle of the Alps. There are only roughly 500,000 inhabitants. However, there's a lot of tourism. In 2022, there was about 8 million arrivals with a stay of 4 to 5 days. So this means that, especially in summer and winter, we get important peaks in production of biowaste. So we needed a technology and a plant that is able to handle these fluctuations in the treatment. In addition, the available surface area in the province is quite small. Only 14% lies below 1,000 meters of altitude. And there's a strong agricultural sector. So space for constructing plants is very limited. And you also need to control the production of odors very well. So in our case, it was chosen that the best solution was to build an anaerobic digestion plant for the organic waste. So smell issues could be controlled as it is a closed process. You need only little surface. And as an advantage, you produce also biogas, which can be used to self-sustain the electricity and heat demand of the plant. And in the end, you produce also valuable digestate that can be used in further composting. How this practice was implemented in our case, the first plant was built in 2006, and it had a capacity of roughly 6,000 to 8,000 tons of biowaste per year. The plant was then extended in 2020 and reached 30,000 tons of capacity, which would be enough to cover the whole need of the province of Bolzano. The resources needed to build the plant were roughly 20 million euros, considering the expansion of the plant in 2020. And currently we employ around 11 plant operators. The plant itself, so the process runs 24/7 every day per year. However, it's open, so we have operators present from 6 to 6 in the afternoon, where the treatment itself takes place. However, the process runs automatically also during night. The actors involved for now are roughly 53 municipalities who convey their bio-waste to our treatment plant. I would like to give you a brief overview on the process inside the plant and technologies that we use. So the organic waste arrives at our plant and then undergoes a pre-treatment in hammer mills, where it is diluted with water and first screenings such as plastics and are separated from the bio-waste. The so prepared substrate goes then in the digestion process itself, where we have the microorganisms that break down the organic fraction of the waste, producing biogas. Biogas is in our case used in cogeneration systems to produce heat and electricity, and the sludge is dewatered, and the so obtained digestate is then sent to our composting facility, which for now is located outside our province. These reactors are equipped with a continuous extraction system for sand on the bottom and for light materials in the top. So we don't need many maintenances, so the reactor itself we never have to open it. There's this continuous extraction of sand and light materials, such as plastic, on the top of the reactor. Talking about the evidence of success, on the right you can see a mass and energy balance of the last year. So last year we treated 21,000 tons of organic waste, and in terms of electricity we produced, 3/4 of the electricity we were able to sell, and 1/4 was needed for self-consumption. Our input material is quite good, so we get a very high production of biogas, so about 160 cubic meters per ton. And also the amount of screening that we separate with about 3% is quite good, in our opinion. And this translates to a relatively low price for waste disposal that the municipalities have to pay, also because we are a non-profit organization. In the future, we foresee to expand the collection of the organic waste to more municipalities, covering the whole province. I would like to talk about the lessons now that we have learned. I would say the most important lesson is the information campaigns, mainly regarding 2 factors, which is the proper waste collection to limit screenings, and informing the population about the impacts that the plant has on the environment. So regarding safety and others, which with modern technology you can control quite well. In terms of collection, in our case, we would suggest that the population should only put the thing in the collections that are actually treatable by the anaerobic digestion. We use paper bags for the collection, which in our opinion is the best solution, as for example bioplastics, as it was said in one of the previous presentations, is I wouldn't say harmful in our process, but it can't be degraded in the process that we have. Our residence time of the waste is around 30 days, and in this time period, the bioplastic exits as it enters the process. Some negative things about our plant is that we right now don't have any composting facility next to our plant, so we have to bring it to an external facility. And this is one of the challenges that we have. So the digestate management, we would like to close the circle locally. Another challenge for the future is the implementation of the upgrading of the biogas into biomethane by a purification process, and to inject the biomethane then directly into the gas grid. So these are the major challenges that we are facing in future. And I'm now coming to an end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dietmar, for a very interesting example from Bolzano. And congratulations on having such a massive system in place. You've mentioned, just like Loes, actually, that it's really important to inform the public to reach high quantities, because of course, for such a large scale system, you need to have large quantities, a big input. You've also mentioned the use of paper bags and the importance of giving them out for free. So I think that's quite important to pinpoint as well. And of course, the right pre-treatment. So we have quite a lot of questions in the chat, actually, so I will go right to it. So during and after dewatering, where does the residual water go? Is it treated locally?
Yeah, the water goes then to a water treatment facility which treats for wastewater treatment of the city of Bolzano in our case. So we don't treat it actually in the plant, but at the wastewater treatment of the city.
And related question to that, how much water does the process use per ton of biowaste?
I have to look up the actual number right now. But I can say that the it's also seasonally dependent. It depends a lot on how wet the biowaste actually arrives. We have a wet process, and so the wastewater that we produce can be compared roughly to the amount of biowaste that arrives. So we have about 1 cubic meter, I would say, of water per cubic meter of biowaste. So 1 cubic meter of wastewater is produced by one cubic meter of biowaste that enters the plant.
Okay, thank you very much. Since there are a lot of tourists in the area, is there a special communication program for them to sort their waste in their holiday homes? Do you know?
I'm not sure about that. That is a question hard for me to answer right now.
No problem. We can also
heard about it, but maybe there is.
We can also come back to that later. I mean, no problem. Another question: where does sand content in separately collected biowaste come from?
So the biowaste comes from the municipalities who
the sand content. Why do you have so much sand?
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't put any like eggshells or nutshells, for example, into the biowaste, but obviously they happen to be there. And this is one component which is separated in the reactors and as we consider as sand. And then there are always some inert materials inside the biowaste that are heavier and go to the bottom. So this was referred to as sand.
That's clear. Thank you. Another question. What is the share between green and kitchen waste in the input? The high yield suggests a rather low share of green waste.
Yeah, in the input, we have a separate connection for green waste. So in our plant, no green waste is treated, only kitchen waste.
And so the green, so the green waste.
The green waste is treated in composting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Another question. What would be needed for your plant to accept the bioplastics? Or will this generate a whole new production concept?
So from the research that we've read regarding the digestion of bioplastic, it is not possible in our process to actually treat it. So, I mean, maybe it gets smaller in the process, but it's not treated.
Okay.
So in the best thing, the only thing you can do is try to separate it, and it then goes basically to incineration. But in our process, it's not degraded.
Yeah. Yeah. Another question. How many paper bags are given to each household per year? If you know, very specific question.
This is, I can tell you from personal experience that there are enough, but I'm not sure about the number. And I think you can also get even more if you, I mean, you can, if it's not enough, you can get more, I think so.
Yeah, so this is distributed directly, or do you pick it up?
Yeah, they're distributed. In case of the city of Bolzano, they're distributed to the household, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And next question, do you have high electric conductivity in the digestate and compost from the salt used in the food?
I'm not sure about this. We sent the digestate to a composting facility, but I can't tell you now for the electric conductivity of the digestate. But if you're interested, I mean, we have analysis of our digestate, and we can provide that.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Let us know, Julia, if you would like that.
Yeah.
And last question, what is the use of the generated heat?
So the generated heat is partially used to heat the digesters, which are kept at 39 degrees Celsius in our case. But most of the heat for now has no use. Unfortunately, we don't have a larger community next to the plant because the plant location was chosen to be quite far away from the city center. So we can't use it in terms of district heating. And so we roughly use maybe, I don't know, 1/4 for it for the heating, for to self-sustain the plant in terms of heat needs, but most of it goes to the atmosphere and is lost for now. This is one of the reasons, because we want to implement the upgrading plant in the coming years. So we produce only the electricity that we actually need and the heat that we actually need, and the rest of it goes into the gas grid and can be used directly where it's needed.
Perfect. Great. So thank you very much for all your answers. There might be some interest to still have separate discussions, it seems. So we will put you in touch.
Okay, thank you very much.
With Lipor, and then you can discuss further. So thank you very much again. And now we are moving to our last presentation. So last speaker is Emiel Elferink, who is coming from the Netherlands, and will speak about something with a very enigmatic name, bokashi. So the floor is yours, and I will let you explain what is that all about.
I'll share my screen. One moment, please. if I'm correct, you can see it now. So, okay.
Yes,
Thank
all
you.
good.
So, my name is Emiel Elferink. I'm an applied research professor on sustainable soil management, and I'm working for the University of Applied Sciences van Hall Larenstein, so which is in the north of the Netherlands. And indeed, I'm going to tell you about a good practice called Bocassi, which we researched in the Interreg Europe project Color Circle, which we compared, especially in the region of the north of the Netherlands. It's about a different perspective than I think than the other presenters have given. They were more about household waste and about processing, compost, etc., etc. I will talk more about the agriculture perspective and what's happening there. And demand and what's changing there. So if you look at the Netherlands, then we see a specific agricultural development from the more intensive agricultural systems to a more extensive agricultural system with more variety, more diversity, etc., etc. And we call them regenerative agriculture or nature inclusive agriculture, or you can call it circular farming. So it's all the same, more or less the same concept. So about making agriculture more sustainable, and sometimes they have a different focus. But what they do have in common is that they all look at agroecology perspectives, that they look at the landscape management, and also about circular aspects. So, and especially, why are we doing that? Ecosystem services are becoming much more important also in the Netherlands for agriculture farmers, so for farming itself, meaning that it's not only anymore about producing large amount of food or feed, but also about all kinds of other ecosystem services like improving biodiversity, finding solutions for climate change, etc., and improving quality. Now, one very important aspect there is on the left side, it's in the increase of soil organic matter. Yeah, so because of that, and I think I need to tell a little bit about that as well. Farmers in the Netherlands sometimes use compost, but they had issues with the quality of compost. Yeah, so and the legislation in the Netherlands changed, I think in 2019, allowing farmers to collect green materials themselves, and use them in the field. Yeah, so it was not allowed just to process them. And one way of using or processing these green materials is by making bokashi, and bokashi is a Japanese word for well-fermented materials. So it means that you ferment the green waste, and that's a process we do for a lot of food products. On the left side, you see all kinds of products in which are fermented, and we use them to store the quality, more or less. Yeah, so it's a word that comes from Dr. Higa, so a Japanese professor there, and it's he invented it in the 1960s. Yeah, so as said in this case, it's mainly about green materials. So the pruning waste, ditch clippings, roadside clippings, etc., are not on household waste. Yeah, so that's not allowed. So in the Netherlands, so you can do it, but it's not so. And it is an anaerobic process, which is accompanied by effective microorganisms. And actually, you have two stages. One is the processing itself, which is the fermentation, which is anaerobic. And secondly, you use it in the field, and then you have a second process, which is more the decomposting, which is more aerobic. Now, how does that look like then? On the left side, you see now a tractor which is collecting or which is mowing the roadsides. So you can also use, as I said, pruning waste, but also ditch clippings, which is also used. In this case, you see ditch clippings which are stored in this case or collected. So it's very important that you then add clay and shell chalk, so to keep the pH at a certain level, but also to add microbiology, so effective microorganisms. Yeah. So let's see if I can reduce this. So yeah, super. And then it's processed, so it's mixed, and it's bagged in this case in trunks. So like this machine does. So we already have machines for that. It's stored there for 8 to 10 weeks. So then it's completely fermented, and then you can use it in the field. Like in this case on the left side, you just throw it on the field, and you don't, and then you leave it there. So what's the difference then between compost and bokashi? I thought that's nice to show in this case as well. So I already discussed the aerobic first. The anaerobic process, composting is more about conversion, so actually making a different product. So by bokassi or fermenting is more or less preserving the product itself. You have a different carbon-nitrogen ratio, so that's mainly because in compost, you can use woody materials more easily than in bokassi. So in bokassi, you more or less use fresh materials which are a little bit wet or which are more grassy. So in compost, you don't use additives. So in bokassi, you need additives. So with some exceptions, compost is usually not covered. Maybe when it's too wet or too rainy, you sometimes in the Netherlands cover it, but only partly. So, and in bokassi, you need to cover it, otherwise you don't get the anaerobic process. Compost is stirred, while in bokassi, you leave it alone. So, with compost, you have a stable, usually end product. So, and with bokassi, you have an intermediate product. As mentioned, you add it to the field, and then it's decomposed. Very important at the moment is that compost is allowed by Dutch law. And bokassi is not allowed by Dutch law because it's seen as waste. So and there's a lot of there's an organization, circular terreinbeheer in Dutch. It's about circular train management. Which is trying to do research like the ORs and see if we can change that law so that you also can allow to use bokassi. So now what we did is we tested bokassi. We still are doing that. So we started already in 2018 with the bokassi experiment. We had 5 farmers. So 3 were on grass and 2 were on fodder maize. We put strips and in the field, in the same field. And we added one strip, we added bokassi, the other one we added slurry, and the other one, and the third one we actually did nothing, so it was the control. And we more or less used for the bokassi and the slurry the same amount of nitrogen, phosphate, and kalium. So and the control only got in the first year some fertilizers, so and the second year it didn't. So you can already see for grass that in this case bokassi seems to have a positive effect on the grass yield in 2019. Yeah. So however, for maize, this is completely different. You can see that in the slurry case, in 2019, the maize yield is higher than in 2018. So compared to bokassi, so you have a better ratio there. Yeah. Again, more or less the same kind of nutrients added. Now, we have also a lot of developments in the Netherlands with regard to bokassi, especially law and regulations is a big debate at the moment. So can you state that leaves and roadside clippings are actually waste, and because of that you're not allowed to make a product out of that? So well, it's more or less also the same raw material from compost. So that's now the discussion. So you also see a lot of new techniques coming up, which makes it more easier to handle bokassi. So if you looked at the big trunks, for instance, which I showed you, then you have this large volumes which are difficult to transport. Some farmers already come up with more new initiatives, like making these small, what you see in the top, small bales of bokassi. So like you do that with grass, so and with feed grass. So this is one of the new techniques. Also very interesting is that a company or an organization called Agricycling, which is an association of farmers, and they already have 6 groups of over 100 farmers in the Netherlands who are testing and wanted to use organic residues and add them to soils, so you can enhance soil quality, and are making business models on that. And this is working very well. And secondly, and as last, we're doing a lot of research. So you can see on the right side the map of the Netherlands. So you see 60 pilots on it. And each pilot is a Boccassi pilot that's allowed by law temporarily to test Boccassi, usually compared with compost or compared to slurry like we did. So, and also what you see in the middle is this nice pot, so with some plants in it, so which is called the mesocosms. And we also are looking at differences between effects on water quality in this case. So it's an undisturbed soil core, so in which we add Boccassi, in which we add compost, in which we add slurry. We have over hundreds of them. You only see one, but we have 100 of them, and we're testing these kind of water quality effects of Boccassi, compost, and slurry as well to see what's happening there. So that was shortly my presentation. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell something about it. And if you have questions, please ask.
Thank you very much. Very inspiring presentation, I think. We have a lot of questions popping up in the chat. Yeah, thank you for raising the point of increasing the organic matter in the soil as well, because that hasn't been mentioned, and I think it's quite key for the future of our food system. So thanks for that. And let's go to the questions that we have. Is any kind of compost allowed by legislation to use on the land, or is there any label certification needed for it? It's from Loes, and she says, here in Belgium, even compost is still seen as a waste product and cannot be
no, it's allowed to use compost in the Netherlands. So we have a lot of composting firms there. So farmers buy a compost from them, and that's one option. And even there are local initiatives in which farmers themselves are composting, like making Boccassi, and we did, and that's allowed. You need to follow certain regulations, yeah. So that's important as well, yeah. So there's otherwise you have a disbalance between the larger companies and the smaller farmers or farmers organization. There is a method in the Netherlands which is called controlled microbiology composting, so which is a certificate for the compost quality, yeah. And it's done by a branch organization called BVOR. So in the Netherlands, who controls that, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. So would you, because you said some farmers are also making Boccassi, making compost, would you recommend this method to farmers rather than composting?
I think two completely different processes, and I'm looking from the soil perspective, yeah. So and I think compost has at a certain point very high additive value for soils. Yeah? So it's already processed. It's a stable material, which is very nice, and you get all kinds of fungi. So microbiology is happening there. Well, Boccassi also is very interesting because it's more or less fresh feed. Yeah? So for the microbiology, it's processed there, and you get all kinds of positive effects there as well. So depending on what your soil needs, so that's how we look at it. Yeah, is what we are trying to make. What kind of mixture? How do you feed your soil microbiology? So so the soil life itself, and what does it need? Yeah, and that's what we try to find in these projects. Can you optimize that? And sometimes a farmer should use compost, but maybe the other times, sometimes you also need to use Boccassi. Yeah, so depending on soil life, ecosystem services you want to promote, etc., etc. Yeah, and these kinds of solutions, we're doing, trying to do research too. Yeah, so.
Yeah, makes sense. So it always depends, and it's going to be a combination probably.
Yeah, you also don't eat just one product. Yeah, so you need to feed the soil properly. So you do that by all kinds of mechanisms, and Boccassi and compost are just two options you have then. So.
Yeah, is there any publication from the study that you have done that you could share?
No, not yet. The study is finished by the end of next year, and then we probably present all the results. Yeah? So we have some presentations and some studies in Dutch, so that I can share. So there are some reports on it. So but in English, scientific paper is hopefully coming by next year with all the results, and we have done it for 6 years. Yeah? So.
Yeah. What about impurities and pathogens in the input?
Yeah,
which options to pre-post treat on the one hand and hygienize on the other hand?
Please, the last sentence. What was that?
Well, which options are there to pre-treat it or post-treat it?
Now, I already mentioned the organization Circular Treinbeheer, so which is it's in Dutch. They have a quality criteria for what kind of pruning waste, roadside clippings. It's a little bit comparable to what Steffen talked about, is that you have visual. Because if you have roadsides, you can have a lot of plastics, etc., etc. This is not the kind of materials you want. That's also why farmers find it very important that they don't have it. So you don't want to have glass or a can in your grass or the raw materials you're going to use. So there's a set of criteria for that. To check that. We have also a big research program which is run by the Wageningen University, and they looked at the quality of all kinds of bokassi. So the 60 pilots I showed you. So and they hardly see any contaminations there. And they looked at pathogens. They looked at heavy metals. They looked at microplastics, etc., etc. So the quality is not less than compost. So the quality of bokassi is and there is a report on that as well. So we can also share that if you like. So this is one is in English, if I'm correct. So there is some discussion now. Does it have effect on because in the Netherlands we export a lot of high quality food products, so which is and there can be that there is a risk for nematodes, for instance. So and that's also what we are trying to find if there's an export risk there.
And
I can answer on this question. Sorry.
Maybe last question. What is your process temperature?
That's the funny thing. There's no temperature, so it's a cold process. So it's a fermentation process. So and that's the difference between compost. So you increase the temperature 60 to 70 degrees. So fermentation process is more or less cool. So it's not hardly increasing the temperature. So if you do so, then the microbiology dies. So and then you have an issue. So there's no actually process there. It's just storing and conserving the materials you have. So
great. There's a couple of more questions, but we are running out of time. So don't worry. To those who post these questions, we will come back to you with answers. We will get these answers from Emiel. So thank you very much. And now I would like to ask Valentin to maybe put on again the word cloud that we had in the beginning, and I would ask all our speakers for a kind of a last round of key takeaways from this webinar. So if you would have to summarize, what are the key factors and important points to take away when talking about biowaste treatment solutions? So maybe we can start with you, Steffen.
Yes, thank you very much. My key takeaway message, especially to local authorities, would be, I hope that you learned from some good practices today. If you're struggling with implementation of collection system, with a treatment system, get in contact with those people one step ahead that have a good system running already. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. I think there are very good practices already in place. So try to make use of it. Try to learn from these practices, and worst case, copy and paste the good programs that are in place already.
Great. Anybody who wants to go next? Loes.
Sorry, I was still muted. Sure. My key takeaway would be inform the people as good as possible with the correct information. Make sure you have a a central point where people can find this information, or a central contact person, and repeat the information regularly, because people forget.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And maybe also from what we've heard before, providing the resources for free, like free paper bags or composting bins is helpful. What other points do we have? Dietmar, Emiel?
I would say, like my colleague said, the most important thing is the quality of the waste that you bring to the treatment plant. Otherwise, the whole discussion doesn't make much sense. And also the use of bioplastics. I think this is an important point where we have to think about what is the best method to collect the biowaste, to ensure that we have a good quality input material, and that ensures also a good management of the plant and a good output material. So I would like to focus, if you're planning to implement a process, you really have to focus on the quality of the input material. And then also planning ahead to expand the plant. So don't plan too small, but make sure you have the possibility to make it larger if you need.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Plan so that you can make it bigger, because you will increase the input, hopefully. Emiel, what about key takeaways from you?
I think I have two. So what we see in the Netherlands, that is a process going on from more centralized processing of these green materials to a decentralized processing. Yeah, so farmers taking the initiative. Yeah, and my second is connected to that because they are looking to solve quality. Yeah, so they want to have their own quality check, so they want to know what is added to the salt, etc., etc. So they're collecting systems themselves. They are developing systems themselves how to collect which waste streams or green materials and to process them. Yeah, so that can be compost, that can be bokashi. Yeah, so
Great. And I think we have also really nice key takeaways actually from our participants in this cloud that I see. And a lot of the points that you've mentioned: citizen awareness, quality, quantity, so that we have enough microorganisms, communication, bioplastic impurities. So a lot of the points that you've said. So thank you to the speakers and the colleagues. Before we end, I would also like to invite everybody to consider participating in our workshop that we are organizing in Vienna and will take place on the 22nd of May. We have a really interesting program, and we are focusing on promoting circularity and sustainable building materials. So it's a little bit different, but maybe for some of you, it's along the lines of what you do, because we have a section on bio-based building materials in this workshop as well. So you can check it out. And yes, thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying a couple of minutes longer. Thanks for the interesting discussions and interesting presentations. Please fill out the survey that will pop up at the end, and see you next time. Have a nice afternoon.